Probably one of the last questions people ask me is whether there are subsidies available for the production of photovoltaic power plants. In the countries where we are, there are no direct subsidies for the production or construction of photovoltaic power plants, but those subsidies exist at the level of purchasing electricity because the state can decide where to stimulate, whether to give you money to build that photovoltaic power plant or whether to stimulate by providing you with a guaranteed purchase price. For us as manufacturers, both options are acceptable, but since the prices for building a photovoltaic power plant are already so low, they are really very attractive. Just for comparison, in 2009, 1 megawatt cost 4.8 million euros, whereas today it's almost 500,000 euros, so we're talking about 10%. That is a tenfold decrease in the cost of construction or the actual production or creation or building of a photovoltaic power plant, which is a dramatic leap. It's only thanks to the fact that money was invested and money kept being invested that the technologies have gradually become cheaper and cheaper and the prices are now more accessible. So there's no point in lowering it further now, and even if we reduced it tenfold again, it probably wouldn't make much of a difference. And even though I think it's no longer possible to reduce it tenfold, that's already happened and it won't happen again. But what is possible is to provide manufacturers with some certainty in terms of knowing that when they build the project, they'll be able to sell it at a fixed price, let's say for at least 5, 7, 10 or even 15 years. And that is very attractive for manufacturers because they know that when they build it or when we build the power plant, we know that we'll be able to sell it. And that is much more motivating for us to build those photovoltaic power plants because it really can happen that in the short term, let's say in the next 10 years, it could happen that for 2, 3 or 4 months, the price might, for example, drop below 30 euros. At that price, the photovoltaic power plant is already at the break-even point, or the return on investment is so unattractive that it no longer makes sense to build it. If you also had it burdened with a loan, you even risk having to bring money to the bank yourself just to actually be able to repay the loan in proportion to what the power plant produces. So from a long-term perspective, if we look, for example, at pricing policy or at the prices for which energy was sold annually in the solar sector, we're talking about the fact that it rarely dropped below 40 or 50 euros. Therefore, our projects, we've only calculated this internally and based on the cash flow forecast we've made, show that even if the price were around 32 euros, we still wouldn't have to bring money to the bank and the project would still be able to earn enough to sustain itself. This is precisely because we are in a region where production is much higher than in Slovakia. In Slovakia, I think that threshold is somewhere around 45 euros per megawatt hour, where you already have to bring money to the bank. And at that point, the business really becomes risky. That's why such an incentive from the Croatian government, which offers a buyout, is very interesting for us, and we are happy to take advantage of it.